Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We're just going to pause for a few seconds as more people join the call this morning. So we'll kick off in 30 seconds or so. Got a few people joining in dribs and drabs, so I think let's kick off this morning. Good morning, everybody. You are very, very welcome to our post-Christmas commercial performance barometer shakedown. I can't believe I'm saying Christmas. It seems like a long time ago now. But if you've joined our last webinar, we had some analysis post-summer, and now we're going to look at post-Christmas. My name's Tom Dawson. I'm the interim COO of the Association for Cultural Enterprises. And I'm joined by a couple of experts to take us through the performance of the last few weeks and months. The the Captain Kirk and Spock of cultural data analysis, the Han Solo, the Chewbacca of cultural marketing. I mean, I'll let you decide which is which. Of course, that is Ollie Reed, Marketing Director of Navigate, the association's marketing partner, and John Young, Audience Research Director of Decision House, the association's data insight partner. So we're going to hand over to John in a sec to take us through the commercial performance barometer over December and towards the end of last year. And then we'll hear from Ollie for a bit more insight from the marketing side of things and a little look ahead. Feel free to ask questions. If you hover down to the bottom of the screen, you should see a chat option. Feel free to pop questions in there at any time, and we will try and get to as many as possible before the end of the call. The call is being recorded, so we will share that with you afterwards if you have to dip in and out, and for also those people who haven't been able to make the call this morning. So thank you again for joining us, and John, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Tom. I will just share my screen. Okay. And Tom, can you see that?
Yep, coming across. Thanks, John.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great. So yeah, thanks very much for that introduction, Tom. And the Star Trek, Star Wars comparisons, I'm not that up on either, so I'll pass on commenting on it. So yeah, great to be presenting today. And yeah, this is, I think, the fourth webinar in the series since we started this project back in about 12 months ago to the day, actually. So yeah, as Tom said, we'll be focusing on some reflections on December, Q4, a little bit of reflection on the whole year. We are planning to we are presenting a more holistic picture at the conference next week. So if you are waiting for some of the annual data that you shared in the recent survey, that will be presented there, and we'll also be producing a white paper afterwards, which looks at the whole of 2025. So yeah, lots more to come as well, but hopefully lots of value today too. In terms of what I'll be presenting today, so I'm going to introduce the barometer just because I know there are some people, some newcomers today, some people who've come across this data for the first time. And then I'll go through the usual order, just a little bit of a summary of the context that we are all operating in, then looking at admissions and secondary spend, so the key data we collect in the barometer, some thoughts on drivers of performance. No huge surprises there. It's a bit of repetition from previous presentations, but lots of new case studies. I'll touch on some special questions as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we come to that section. Then some closing thoughts and just a little bit on some of our plans for 2026. So the next year, we've got some plans to develop the questionnaire and the dashboard, having consulted with some of the members. So, yeah, looking forward to sharing that. Then I'm going to hand over to Ollie, who's going to talk all things marketing and with a more sort of future-focused lens. Um, so in terms of the barometer, just for those of you who aren't really familiar with it, so this is a questionnaire that we conduct on a monthly basis, and it's something that we started a year ago. And there's two main aims really. The first is to inform the sector of how well others in the sector are doing. Um, and also to inspire as well. So it's all well and good having the numbers, but I think it's the examples of best practice that are the most powerful. So yeah, that was our aim. And we do try to do that with speed and simplicity. So there's lots of other metrics, barometers or similar out there, but quite often they take a long time to be published. Visit England's Visits to Visitor Attractions survey is one example of that. So we wanted to produce with speed and simplicity, basically, so you can have up-to-date findings um, as quickly as possible. So yeah, just in terms of what it involves, so the mechanics, as I mentioned, it's a short survey once a month. If you're a multi-site organization, you can fill it out on Excel. If you're a single site organization or just want to put one site forward, then there's an online survey. Um, oh, sorry. Yeah, there's an online survey, and the questionnaire covers subjects such as your profile, which you only do once, admissions, catering, retail, your general sentiment, and then we always add a couple of special questions on a monthly basis. So this could be anything really. It could be around guidebook conversion, or basically anything that you find interesting. Okay, so and finally, we produce the results in a few different ways. So we have two dashboards, one data dashboard where you can filter the results throughout the year by a number of different areas. After each month, we produce a monthly blog, which you can find on the Cultural Enterprises website, and obviously we do these webinars too. Okay, and as of December, we have had participation from over 250 venues. So, and venues of all shapes and sizes, all sectors, some of the large membership organizations, some of the very small venues as well. So, yeah, I think we're really pleased with how it's gone. Okay, so now coming into the results. So yeah, I think to start off with, it's fairly, I guess, unsurprising, but it is worth highlighting the financial climate that the public are operating in. So this chart here is taken from the Office for National Statistics Opinions and Lifestyle Survey. And what the line shows is the proportion of British adults saying their cost of living has increased over the last month. And as you can see, I mean, pretty much all the way back to January 2022, we've had a majority of people saying that their cost of living has increased. But if we look at 2025, which is the period this research is most focused on, then that is higher than 2024 for pretty much every single month. So the key takeout there is that people are still struggling, and they're really feeling it. And you can also see that savings are historically high too. Um, and what that means is that people, they may have the disposable income, but perhaps more likely to hold back um, and keep it just in case they need it. And obviously that will have an impact then on their ability to spend on leisure. ONS also asked this question around, which of these things are you doing because of the increases in the cost of living? And I mean, this is fairly obvious stuff, but I think it is worth sort of highlighting. Um, so most of those saying their cost of living has increased are saying they're spending less on non-essentials. Um, Beyond that, people are shopping around more, even spending less on food shopping and essentials. So I guess from the perspective of yourselves, this just means that leisure choices may be a little bit more selective, probably fall into the non-essential category. And it may just mean people doing things, leisure activities less frequently. Also, when it comes to on-site, I think this can have an impact on where people spend on site. So, maybe the cafe or the restaurant is an essential, but retail a non-essential. And we do see that coming out as we progress through this presentation. Um, I guess in some way linked, when we look at Visit England domestic tourism, so this takes us up to September, we can see that holiday nights are down 4% on 2024. Spend is up. That's probably driven as much by the cost of trips increasing. Day visits up, so I guess that is a positive, but this will impact different parts of the country in different ways. So if you are more reliant on holiday nights domestically than you are day visits, maybe the southwest of England would be an example of that. Then you will be more negatively impacted. But equally, if you're more reliant on day visits, you may have benefited. Okay. I think, it's not just impact on consumers. Obviously, the cost of living and inflation and rising prices, has had an impact on suppliers as well. And these quotes are taken from the Barometer survey. We had a number of you saying that um, supply costs have gone up. So this first quote, we've struggled with availability in some cases, just getting books, honey, jams, etc. in stock in December. Some have been slower, out of print, not available. Some local suppliers have gone out of business. Due to funding being at a standstill, but costs increasing, we've had to reduce the number of exhibitions we put on. Businesses have scaled back on Christmas parties this year, and we're wondering if others have experienced the same. I would like to sort of pause on that one because this was an interesting one that we just spotted. Yesterday. Tom, would you be happy to launch a poll? We'd be interested to see if that is something that others have experienced too around Christmas parties.
Yep, so hopefully most of you will see a poll just pop up on your screens. Sometimes Zoom will block pop-ups on your computers, but if you want to pop in your answers now, that'd be great. Few more seconds for you to put your answers, then I will share the results. 5 more seconds for those of you who want to answer but quite haven't done it yet. Okay, that's great. We had just over two-thirds of you been able to answer that, so uh, show those results on screen. John, back to you if you want to talk through the results.
Great. So, very quick calculation. So, 21% saying worse versus 13% better, and around half not doing Christmas parties. So, that is interesting. That quote seems to be supported by a number of others. So, I guess this really just highlight the number of impacts downstream that cost of living and just the general squeeze can be having. I should add that we did ask a question on venue hire, and we will be at venue hire for the year, and we will be sharing that in our presentation at the conference next week, and also in the white paper that follows. Um, Another bit of context, I think I've shared a very similar image each time I've presented. So we've sort of looked at weather as a driver of performance, and this certainly has impacted us negatively, I'd say, for most of the year. So between March and June, we had some of the hottest months to date. That really did impact both indoor and outdoor, actually, because at a point it was too hot for to visit either. I think actually in December just gone, that relatively warm month was a net positive. A number of you mentioned the nice weather, particularly as this member put in the Twixmas period, really did help. So um, whilst for the start of the year, I think it was unhelpful, it's nice to see it being a bit more helpful towards the end of the year. Okay, so now looking at admissions. I'm going to be showing a few charts with all 12 months of data separately, and we'll be showing some year-to-date figures as well. So what we can see here is the story of the year for many of the months has been pretty negative. So we've seen drops of, yeah, all the way back from January up to November. We had a relative a good April, a good Easter, and a decent May and a half decent August. So some fairly decent months admissions wise in a lot of the holiday periods. But as you can see on the right hand side there, some really positive admissions in December. So plus 10% on 2024. So um, I was, to be honest, after the previous few months, I was expecting to see another negative. So we did really have to check the data just to make sure that everything was correct. And yeah, the more we looked into it, the more we were confident in that. Year to date, this means that the median average, which is what we use for all these other figures, is slightly down. If we look at total admissions, so adding up all the admissions, then that's a bit more down. So um, I guess, a more positive picture than maybe we would have expected a couple of months ago. Um, I mentioned that we sort of dug deep into some of these figures, and we had a number of you saying, including some very large membership organizations, that you had the best December either for some time or even ever. So we can see this quote bottom left. We had our best performing December since COVID, an exceptional trading period, and our best ever Christmas for visitors, F&B, and retail. We had an excellent December and a record for us in terms of visitor numbers. So loads of really positive positive months for a number of you. I should say that picture there is one that I took at my local National Trust site, Polesden Lacey. And if you look closely, you can see there's a really long queue going into the house for the Alice in Wonderland exhibition they ran. And we visited three times, and the queue was as long as that, sometimes longer. We didn't get a chance to go in because of that. I've got a 2-year-old who definitely wouldn't have queued that long. But I think one of the reasons I'm showing this is I think it's indicative of the effort that many of you put into your Christmas offer this year, and it feels like that has really paid dividends. Um, a chart that I've shown in each of the webinars, and I do like to show, and I'm showing here, is the breakdown of admissions changes, because I think you can easily look at an average, and I guess either you can perhaps get concerned and say, well, that's not us at all. We're down we were down in December, or we're down for the year, or maybe you're even further up. And what this chart shows is the proportion that are either 3% up or above, those that are around the same, around the -2 to +2 mark, and the proportion -3% and below down on the previous year. And whilst December was positive for a majority of you, actually as high as any month, and we can almost exclude April because of the timing of Easter. Whilst December was brilliant for that for a lot of you, actually, there was still around a third of you that were reporting figures down in 2024. So I guess, what we say here is that, you're not alone if you are down. And yeah, there are a number of you in the same boat. Um, and if we look at the year, yeah, there are more of you down than up. Um, a number of you oscillating around that sort of same figure too. Um, I think it's also worth noting that when we look at different parts of the country, it's not as straightforward as some of the previous charts. So I showed you some of the figures around domestic tourism, and I think there's also been um, negative experience of overseas tourism in some areas. And here I've shown London venues and Wales in the southwest, and both have broadly tracked below the average. And I guess that will be for different reasons. Wales and southwest certainly more impacted by domestic tourism. But if you look at that green line for the Wales and the southwest, it's quite far below. And most of those venues are in the southwest of England. Um, So I think, if you are in an area that relies on domestic tourism, as the Southwest typically does, then the average is a bit lower. Um, Another chart, I think this is the last of these charts with the 12 months on them. You'd be relieved to hear. Another chart that we've been showing in each of the webinars is the difference between admissions fortunes at least for free and charging venues. So what this chart here shows is admissions versus last year for those different types of venue. And one thing that we've highlighted throughout the year, and this seems to have carried through all the way to December, is that in the school holiday periods in particular, the fortunes for free and charging venues have been relatively similar. But outside of the holiday periods, um, free venues have done better. And what this has suggested to us, and there is other research out there that backs this up, is that people are perhaps holding back on the number of experiences they'll pay for in a year. But when it comes to these key holiday periods, particularly families, then they are spending that money. And we saw that the savings ratio is historically high. And I guess that all feeds into that argument too. We didn't see this convergence in October half term, so we were wondering if that had finished, but it does look like people may have been holding back for the Christmas period because, as you can see, actually charging venues did even better than free venues in December. And I think just a final point on that, and it's something I think that Ollie is going to talk about next, is it just really highlights the importance of these key periods in the year. Whether it's your half term or your seasonal holidays, people do seem to be building up for these periods. Um, Now looking at the catering and retail, so I haven't shown you all this across each of the months, but you can access this in the dashboard and actually in some of our previous presentations. But the key takeout here is if we look at the left-hand side first, is that catering has done relatively well. So ATV plus 4% on 2024 and SPV spend per visitor plus 6% on 2024. So pretty much holding its own and above inflation. Retail has done slightly less well. So, and this has been the story for most of the year. So, uh, average transaction value plus 2% and spend per visitor plus 3%. So, broadly, a below inflation. We did see between September and November the retail bounced back a bit, but in December it dropped below inflation again. So the general picture through the year has been of retail struggling. And I guess this takes us back to one of the earlier slides around people cutting back on non-essential spending. And I think we can read that here. I thought it was really interesting this wave as we looked at we looked at organizations with admissions up and organizations with admissions down separately. And I've just shown December here. But what's really interesting is that actually having more people through the door does not necessarily mean that they will spend on retail. So actually, those venues who recorded increased admissions were more likely to have a drop in spend per visitor than those that recorded a decline in visitors. And I guess what this means is people have been coming through the doors, but not necessarily spending in the shop when they're there. And I guess this is more of a problem for free venues. And when we looked at free venues, this had happened there. You may have people coming through the doors, looking at your collections, but literally not spending any money on site. And obviously, this is a challenge. And can be an issue. And I think we saw this from a number of you, a number of quotes here that sort of really underline this. We increased visitor numbers, but this did not translate to higher spend. So you can see 9% increase in visitor numbers, but spend per visitor down 21%. We saw slightly more people buying, but at a reduced spend. Low visitor numbers were our main challenge, but the visitors we did have spent more than in previous years, so it can work both ways as well. Perhaps people are getting less people through the doors, but the people they are getting through are spending the money. So the key point there isn't doesn't naturally convert to higher spend. Okay, so now jumping into drivers of strong performance, and if you have attended these presentations before, you won't be surprised to see that we are going to sort of look at programming again. And this chart is taken from the the qualitative open text analysis, where you tell us about your drivers of performance. And programming comes out very strongly, and particularly since July last year. And as you can see, the green is higher than the red for each of the months from July to December, just really highlighting the positive impact of programming in those months. I'm going to show you some nice examples of this. Um, a few case studies to pull out. So Titanic Belfast really sort of jumped out for us. So you can see the quote here. We hosted a festive Christmas market in the main atrium of the building leading up to Christmas. It was open to the public and free, which was a good opportunity for messaging and for encouraging additional spend. We also ran the annual magical Christmas experience. And as you can, if you read further down, there was also a consumer Christmas event, a choral event in the galleries. So what I really like about the Titanic Belfast example is the free Christmas experience, but also the charging Christmas offer and the marketing that they invested in to promote the charging Christmas offer. So really highlights, I guess, a venue really pushing that Christmas programming. English Heritage as well, I guess, relatively similar. So we conducted site-specific Christmas programming of community-focused events. It saw an increase in footfall to sites during normal trading hours. And as you can see, there were a number of examples of things that they did. And this had a really positive impact on their visitors, the spend per head, and also member visits through December. Historic Environment Scotland had an excellent December, a record for us in terms of visitor numbers. This image here is taken of the Castle of Light at Edinburgh Castle. That continues throughout December, beating both its admissions and retail targets. Some real Christmassy focused examples there, and I think most of us will know that there were some brilliant examples across the country. Um, but also, I think, it wasn't just Christmas events, and this takes us back to November, through to December at Fort Nelson. Their Standing with Giants exhibition had a huge commercial impact. It pushed admissions ahead of target, resulted in high retail spend, also resulted in lots of donations, which exceeded the installation costs. And as you can see, it looks absolutely stunning, and understand that sort of emotional response from visitors. Um, yeah, and here are some of the numbers. Admissions up 150%, retail up 444%, and catering 10%. So some really big numbers there. Fashion and Textile Museum, the popularity of their temporary exhibition resulted in their best performing December post-COVID. So it doesn't have to be Christmas oriented. It can be just an exhibition like this, which is very much on brand. I think I also wanted to highlight, I guess, the long tail, if you like, of a really positive, commercially positive exhibition. So the Ashmoleans, This Is What You Get exhibition, which we featured last time as well. I guess if we just look at some of the comments we've had from the Ashmolean through the year. So back in May, they were saying they had a challenging May as they still had exhibitions that weren't driving footfall. But if we look at all the months that followed, when the This Is What You Get exhibition started, all the way through to December, just had lots and lots of really positive comments about the impact of programming, particularly on their commercials, and the spend in the shop. A similar story, but a very different type of exhibition at the National Archives. So their MI5 exhibition, generating huge increases in numbers. So back in February, they were saying there's no exhibition currently open, so we're down on visitors compared to 2024. From March all the way to November, just loads and loads of incredibly positive comments about the success of this exhibition. And I think with National Archives, the admissions were so much higher. It almost didn't matter that some people wouldn't have been spending in the shop and retailer because there were enough people there for the revenue to be higher anyway. This was a free exhibition. Um, I think just trying to identify some of the themes across these the programming that delivers strong commercial outcomes. I think a number of these exhibitions attract enthusiasts. Often the subject matter is on brand. often it's emotionally resonant. The Fort Nelson example, a great example of that. Retail friendly subject matter. I think a lot of these exhibitions they lend themselves to purchases in the shop. Some attract affluent audiences, and often there are time limited products too. So things that you can't buy elsewhere, and you are almost forced to buy on that visit. Um, so that's pretty much me. I'm just going to quickly jump through some of the special questions we ask. So some of you may have seen this on LinkedIn or on the Cultural Enterprises blog. So we did ask the question around planned admission price changes in 2026. There's a bit of a difference between Scotland and the rest of the UK, and that's because in Scotland we have a couple of large membership organisations taking part. But broadly, certainly outside of Scotland, there are sort of tentative plans to increase in 2026, but certainly not above inflation. And that does feel a little lower than a year earlier. So if we look at some of the other surveys out there, it suggests that prices will increase a little bit more in 2025. Yeah, we asked a question about staff and volunteer discounts. So I won't dwell on this, but the average discount is 20%. But there is a bit of nuance. So do jump into our dashboard where you can look at this in more detail. And I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to whip through these closing thoughts because I think we've pretty much summarized it. We do operate in challenging times. But December really illustrates the impact of sustained programming, but it is also essential that this programming supports the commercial wing of the organization. We've seen examples where higher admissions does not necessarily mean higher spend on site. And again, we highlighted the programming that seems to do the best. So whether it's emotionally resonant, on brand, retail friendly, and attracts affluent enthusiasts, this seems to perform best commercially. And finally, I just wanted to highlight before I hand over to Ollie, we do have plans for 2026. We have a couple of new permanent questions, one on e-commerce and retail and catering income. Some of our special questions touch on some of the areas that you've raised as most important, such as venue hire, ticket mix, membership retention. We're going to do some slight changes for data collection. So we're changing the order of the columns on the Excel sheet, which may sound insignificant, but a number of you have asked for this. And we'll also be updating the dashboard, so we'll have a bit more functionality there. But I'm going to pass over to Ollie now because I've taken enough of the time.
I don't think it was enough of the time, John. I think it was just right. So handing over to me, Chewbacca now. I do like Star Wars, and I do. I'm not a Star Trek fan, but can everyone see my screen, or is that
Yeah, looks good, Ollie. Thanks.
perfect? Thanks. Right. So yeah, I'm going to whiz through some kind of things that we're seeing at Navigate. John's kind of given a general direction of travel, and so this is kind of I'm going to focus really on the kind of the two peak periods we've got coming up, because as the data shows, those peak periods are when families especially are looking to spend, and hopefully focus on things that you can make an impact on. In terms of who I am, just briefly, I've worked in culture and attractions for about 18 years, been visiting them for about 35 years. And I was the head of marketing at a charity venue down in the southwest. So again, I've worked in catering and events and commercial and attractions as well. And now I work at Navigate, helping organizations kind of grow revenue and visitors through digital. So very cheesy photo. And then this is lots of amazing people we currently work with at Navigate, and as well as the marketing partner of the Association of Cultural Enterprises. We are the same for Alva and Biaza. And what that means is basically that I'm going to kind of talk through the barometer data that John's lovingly giving you, and it's some fantastic data, and then our own data as well and what we're seeing. So I know you're thinking probably, oh, a guy from a marketing agency is going to tell me to do more things. Brilliant. I've got loads of time for that, Ollie. No, I'm going to focus on the things that I think are going to make the most impact. So hopefully you're not going to have a big old list of things to do. And these are just some ideas on things to focus on. But the core insight from 2025 that we're seeing and the data kind of is showing is the biggest commercial lever is event-based marketing and what we're calling that. And by that, I don't mean marketing events, but the approach to marketing around your general experience. So that could be events, that could be your exhibitions, it could be a catering, whatever that is. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. And by that, it means that people aren't really just looking to buy tickets anymore. They're looking to go to an event, whether it's a day out or an evening event or an experience, and they're looking for those memories. It's almost like a memory token they're looking for, and that really does impact the marketing. So that's kind of why program is beating generic kind of we're open messaging. And there's some things that I'm going to pick on now. In terms of Christmas, what we've seen across our data as well is Santa. He's working well still, but he's working specifically well where there's not a lot of Santa grottos and things around. Where there is that competition, it's not as strong. But for example, Hampshire Cultural Trust have got a fantastic Santa experience that's done really well for them. But what's also working really well is the things, not just the traditional Santa experiences, but it says here, Dino Christmas shows in the Northeast, elf train rides, Polar Express, things that are a bit different than the kind of day offer. And the reason for that is the scarcity in terms of there's limited capacity for these events. And also they're really visually quite striking. So when it comes to promoting them, imagery and video, you can showcase is just standing out a lot more and people want to kind of get involved. And one client mentioned that they kind of launched their Christmas experiences a lot earlier in November, and that kind of has boosted the performance. Because I suppose if it's not traditionally tied to like a Santa thing, where it's like, well, we'll probably do that in December. If it's a general winter experience, then that can work quite well. And what this all means is that kind of your always on marketing isn't cutting it. It's really, really important, but it's not enough anymore. So things like, your Google grant, I'm sure many of you've got that $10,000 a month in advertising, your search, your awareness, all really, really important. But when it comes to those peak periods, you're having to kind of go above and beyond, because I think people are, again, looking for that specific thing that they're going to go out and do. And what that means is you can't just be like, oh, we're open, come and see us. It has to be really kind of tailored to something that people want to go and see. So event-based marketing tactics that we're seeing working really well is limited capacity, limited dates. And the reason for that is obviously if you've got all the capacity in the world and you're doing it for the whole year, there's not really that, oh, well, I need to book my ticket now because at some point I'll go and see it. And so again, it's trying to drive those bookings, whether you're a free site or a paid site. Creating that urgency is really, really important. One client we worked with, they released their exhibition tickets in batches. So again, late booking's been a really big trend, and it's going to continue to be that, I think, moving forward. So what they did was they offered a flexible ticket where you could book, but you can come anytime in limited batches. So they were the money can't buy tickets. So they released 200 at a time, sold out, released some more, and put the dates online. So that nice kind of tactic there. And across all of the advertising we're seeing, we're seeing video is working a lot better than static. Now that doesn't mean you need to go out and employ the next Christopher Nolan to make your video. Just literally your mobile phone and really kind of authentic content is working really, really well. And then in terms of tactical offers, what we mean by this is where your programming is working really well, but there's dates that aren't looking as busy. Offering reduced tickets or free to certain groups can really a good way to boost that revenue. And then from what we're seeing in terms of the most missed opportunities, all of you are doing some amazing things, and these are just ideas for adding to that, is creating those kind of bolt-on experiences. So again, even if you're a free site, what is something that people might spend money on, whether it's a VIP talk, or a special family slot that they get, I don't know, a welcome pack on arrival, those kind of things. And it's important to kind of connect those secondary spend options to your programming or your visitor experience wherever possible. I know a really good example of this is the National Space Centre. They put in a new film, which is fantastic, and features a little cuddly alien. And funnily enough, you could buy that alien in their gift shop, and they saw some great sales there. So again, tying your retail to your experience is working really well. And when you do sell out, because we're all fantastic, you will sell out. Your limited capacity numbers is making sure that people have got a place to go on a waiting list. And in terms of your CRM data, your MailChimp or whatever you're using, is tagging that waiting list as these people that are interested in this event. And then when you've got a new event, going straight out to that audience and getting it sold out really easily. Again, when I was at the aquarium down in the Southwest, we launched a special Valentine's night, which was a premium experience that sold out pretty much instantly through Facebook. So then Dine at the Aquarium was an event we ran through the year. And to find out when the dates were, you had to sign up to the waiting list. And it just gives you really rich data that you can ideally try and sell your experiences before having to go to the wider market. And finally, it's a whistle-stop tour, but I just wanted to focus on what I think is going to be really, really important for 2026 is telling your unique story. And I think February half term's around the corner, so maybe not enough time now to put things in place. But for Easter, I think the generic Easter messaging, the Easter bunny and the eggs and things are all well and good. But I think it's important to avoid those generic things for two reasons. One is Easter's at the start of the Easter holidays this year. So after that Easter weekend, it feels a bit odd to be talking about bunnies and things for the rest of that holiday. And also, it's not really authentic to your experience unless there's the egg museum, you've got a bunny collection in your galleries. There's no authentic connection there, and I think it's really important to focus on what makes you unique and tie your programming to your place, your culture, and your identity. A really great example of this, I'm based down in Plymouth. The Box is a fantastic organization. At the moment, they've got a barrel cook exhibition running. It's a free exhibition, but you've got to book tickets for it. We're working with them at the moment, but I went to book tickets and it's sold out until at the end of March. So this is a really authentic experience that ties to their collection, ties to Plymouth, their place. And actually, in this time of year, it's February half terms, the kind of shoulder seasons, your local market is really, really important. So tying your programming to something that's going to really get them out is going to be really, really important. So when it comes to this year, 2026, the busy periods aren't necessarily guaranteed to be busy anymore. So it's all about designing them, with marketing, commercial, your curator teams, whoever, all at the table, and designing them together to make it as good as it can be. I've whistled through my slides because I think it's great if there's any questions or things like that. But thank you very much. Any more information you need, just get in touch.
Thank you, Ollie and John. That's absolutely fantastic. There's a wealth of information and things we could talk about for a long time, I know. We have a few minutes left. If anybody does want to ask any direct questions now, of course, feel free to drop any of us an email if you want to ask something more specific or something you kind of would like to share in terms of data, not in a public forum. That's also quite understandable. So. I'm just going to mention a couple of things, and we'll do a last poll again, thinking about looking forward to 2026. Our next free webinar will be in May, so we'll have the post-Easter analysis for you all. That will be up for booking soon. For those of you who are coming to the Cultural Enterprises Conference next week in Birmingham, you can join John and me. If you haven't seen enough charts from John, you can join us on Wednesday the 11th at 9:30 a.m. on the main stage, where we'll be doing, excuse me, a state of the sector panel. John will talk a bit more about how 2025 has performed and what we can expect in 26 in terms of audience and commercial spend. And then we will have a panel of three heads of commercial who will talk through some of the issues John and Ollie have touched on today, particularly things like how particular venues are approaching programming. How do you, as someone in the commercial teams, get a seat at the table with maybe your programming exhibition teams? We'll touch on some of those things like seasonal events as well. So do join us. Tickets are still available, of course, for next week if you can make it to Birmingham. John, let's quickly share our poll for 2026. I'm just going to launch that now. Do you want to just talk through it for a sec? Excuse me. So we're asking you how you are feeling about commercial performance in 2026. So a bit of a sentiment question here. Thinking about the coming year in terms of commercial performance. Are you confident you're going to hit your budgets, or are you feeling a little bit nervous as February starts? I think, John, is it fair to say we've seen confidence is usually fairly high at the beginning of the year when we did this in 2025? Is that right?
It is indeed, yeah. And it did tail off a bit like my New Year's resolutions. Yeah, it bounced back a little bit later.
Good. Well, we've had about 3/4 of you, so I'll just give it a few more seconds if you want to enter the poll, and then I'll share the results. Lovely. Okay, so I'm hoping you can all see the results on there. We've got majority of you are fairly confident or above, but a significant portion of you are not so optimistic. So that's interesting to see. I think at the beginning of 2026, we will obviously be um, reporting on this kind of sentiment analysis in the barometer going forward as well. Um, The question, Rashi, thank you. The white paper, we'll be publishing that in the weeks following conference. So look out for that. We will be mentioning that in our comms to everyone. So again, free to use. For those of you who want to look at the dashboard, just a reminder, go to our homepage. You have to log in first as a member, and then you'll see a link to the dashboard in the main menu, and you can go in there and filter to your heart's content. So it's 1:45 now, so I think we'll wrap up and just say again a really big thank you to Ollie from Navigate, John from Decision House. Keep an eye out for our monthly blogs and analysis from John. Hope to see as many of you as possible in Birmingham next week. And Sarah, yes, we will share this webinar with you in the coming days. Thank you very much, guys.
Hopefully see you in Birmingham.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Cheers, guys.